Hi there, I'm Denbigh-White and I'm with my colleague Neena and we're at RSA 2023 in San Francisco. The theme here is Stronger Together, which is really interesting. Neena, what are some of your thoughts on the theme of the conference in general?
Oh, I think it's a beautiful theme because it's wonderful to see all these security technologies in play here at the conference and seeing how, each one of us are a different part of the puzzle to solve a security problem. And it's nice to see how we can all come together to build better security for our organizations.
Absolutely. But, Stronger Together is a great thing, but what are some of the themes and thoughts that you would think of in relation to, how can we actually do that?
Yeah, so I know it seems repetitive, but I think it's repeated for a reason. So there are three things that come to mind when we talk about better security, and that's people, whether it's your users or your analysts, your cybersecurity team, processes to support these users in the organizations, and then the technologies that can help with more efficiency and just building a stronger, more positive security culture using these three aspects.
Absolutely, and when you mention people, that really resonates with me because something I've always noticed is that there's often a disconnect between the security teams and the end users. Sometimes there's a certain degree of tension and animosity. Is that something that you've seen?
Absolutely. We actually experience this even in our organization all the time because it could be, developers, they want to maybe upload source code somewhere, or people in the marketing organization, they might want to upload large files somewhere, and they all have different file sharing sites and different tools that they use for these.
Yes.
And there are rules around using these tools or applications. And so when they're blocked from using these, it just frustrates them.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can be sometimes quite frustrating. I think to the most part, people don't want to necessarily do the wrong thing, but understanding what the right thing is all of the time there can be a certain disconnect there, and security can feel that users are being ill-advised and taking unnecessary risks, and while users can think, hey, I just need to get the job done. So I think definitely working together in that respect is something super useful.
Absolutely, I totally agree because when I'm doing my job, I'm not necessarily, I go through the yearly training or the quarterly training on security, so I know what I should be doing. But then when I want to quickly send a file, or I want to do something related to my job which needs me or requires me to use a different application,
yes,
I'm not necessarily thinking about security right at that moment. It's, how can I do my job as fast as possible? How can I do it more efficiently? And so having technologies or tools that support this right at that time when I'm actually using that technology or tool, which helps me do my job, but also telling me the right way to do it, would be something that I would find very useful personally, and generally all the employees.
So essentially what you're talking about really is having processes in place that firstly people understand what those processes are, what the right thing to do is, but also processes that aren't, stringently, draconically blocking people. These are processes that increase security whilst reducing friction at the same time. Is that what you're saying there?
Yeah, adaptive security.
Adaptive security. No, that seems to make a lot of sense. And I think it's important to understand you need to have tools that are able and agile enough to do this kind of thing, because a large lock on a door is relatively easy to implement. You just lock everything. But, as we've spoken, you and I both know that, that doesn't play well with users, and often these things just don't work.
Yeah, they don't, because there's no one size fits all. So you in your job might need to upload things to different websites, and I might need to upload files to a different website. And the amount of data that I upload might be different from the amount of data that you upload. So that's where these adaptive controls, where we use newer technologies, whether it's machine learning or AI, that learn the behaviors of individual users and build controls according to the behavior of individual users.
Yes.
That's where we can really work better together and build more efficient processes.
No, that's really true. And something you touched on there as well is that, often there's the feeling that security already know how the business do business. And my experience is that's very rarely the case. So having the visibility, the adaptive controls, learning what normal is of benefit to the business because they have understanding of security at the point of risk and all things, but also really great for security because they understand actually what challenges and what goals and what things the business are trying to achieve and can work together. I think, stronger together is absolutely true. And I think, with businesses and security working with each other and not against each other, I think that's the only way we can combat, the issues and the threats that we face in data security today.
Yeah, I agree. Because it's essentially when your users are also part of the solution, they are a force multiplier.
Absolutely.
And it's the same thing with the technology. When the technology takes away the onus from the security analysts from doing just the more mundane aspects of the job, of trying to create rules that maybe are specific to each individual, that's just too much overhead. So if you can have technologies that support like automated learning of people's behavioral patterns and even automated responses to them, maybe with some training or reinforcement learning in the process, it becomes more adaptive, and that again is another force multiplier.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense to me. And as well, there's the whole area of the unknowns. As I mentioned, there's a whole lot of things around what users, what people are doing, data journeys that people don't necessarily inside of the company understand, both the business and security side. So that adaptive learning can certainly help reduce those unknowns and create a more focused and targeted kind of method of improving security, improving awareness, and also improving the communication between the business, security, governance and compliance, because working together, that's the end of that's the end goal.
Yeah, exactly. As you said, at the end of the day, all of us just want to protect our organizations, protect our data, protect our people.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's what we're all here for at RSA, stronger together. It's great to see, this as a theme. It's certainly being spoken about all over the place, and we're certainly striving to help in that as well. So great chatting to you today, Neena. This has been really fun.
Yeah, same here.
Have a great conference.
You too.
Thank you.